Hello, and PolitiBabble are back for our 5th season, discussing the joyous news of politics and all the issues that surround it. We're here today to discuss pressure groups. I'm Archibald Elliott, and as usual, I'm joined by my absolutely wonderful co-host,
Oliver Sykes. Hello, Archie.
Hello. Yes, so we're back for yet another season. As you might have noticed, we've just finished our Manx mini-series focusing on politics, but now we have a new Chief Minister, and it's all settled back into the rather calm Irish Sea, of which the sea is usually not. So yes, this week we're discussing political pressure groups. So Oliver, what are political pressure groups?
Well, political pressure groups are usually an organisation which attempts to influence government policies, mainly through protests or demonstrations, and they're usually formed when people have similar opinions and get together for similar objectives. I may give an example now. Before we're obviously going to talk about what they are doing currently. But that's sort of, for example, what you might see in the news a lot at the moment is, for Extinction Rebellion or
Insulate Britain.
They are, well, particularly Insulate Britain at this sort of moment in time this week have been really apparent. But we've seen all sorts of different pressure groups over the past few years to try and change policy and sort of influence the politicians. We now sort of see them trying to cause more disruption to people's lives than usual. They're getting a lot more sort of non-peaceful, and that just shows sort of the aggravation that it's causing some people.
Well, I'd say it goes in waves, really, because we did see sign of these pressure groups could be described almost as union-like, because we saw, especially in the 60s and 70s, Oliver and I obviously weren't alive then, going back quite some time in history, for us at least. There were, obviously, you had the miners' strikes, and those were very, very heavy, with lots of union movements, which again did turn violent in places. And then we saw even the 2005 riots, if I'm correct, or 2007, somewhere around in the early 2000s there were riots in London. But we'll go back to the first example Oliver pointed out there of Insulate Britain, and that's obviously been heavily in the news over the past at least month or so. So they're a group which wants to have the government insulate all social housing in Britain by 2025 and retrofit all homes with insulation by 2030. So obviously government has heavily condemned them because the methods they are taking are not just standing outside Downing Street, standing in Parliament Square and protesting, having their voices heard. Or not even just disrupting government leaders or people, figures which they feel are massively impacting the environment. Insulate Britain is blocking the roads of this country. They're blocking the motorways, especially the M25, the A1M, the M3, the M11, all in England. And kind of the first protest was the protesters blocked 5 junctions off the M25.
Yeah, which is M25 is like a massive ring
it's
around
a major,
London.
major motorway.
Yeah, it goes right around London, sort of the outskirts of London. And if you're going to mess that up, it's going to cause pretty detrimental effects on the rest of the country.
That's their reasoning. The whole reasoning behind it is to say we're going to be an absolute pain in the proverbial to actually get some action, which in a way makes sense, but the way they do about it, I don't think actually goes and creates that. In theory, yes, it works, but actually all they're doing is annoying basically the hell out of commuters and everyone trying to get through, even ambulance crews, which they say
I've
they have a
seen
blue
that.
light
It's awful.
policy, but how can you get a blue light policy when the ambulance is a half a kilometre back and there's half a kilometre of cars in front which can't move out of the way?
And I've seen a couple of videos where the crew, have got out of the vehicle and are dragging them off. I've seen a lot of videos of people dragging them, and they just sort of slump there and don't move at all. It's really...
Oh, but then once they're dragged back off and they're left alone, they just run back on. They run back on.
I saw a video of them.
Win.
I saw a video of them hiding. I don't know whether they had police chasing them, but I saw a group of them hiding under, the sort of under tunnel.
The bypass.
The sort of
those
kind of things. Anyway. they were hiding there in the high-vis jackets, and they were like, right, let's go. And they
Hardly hiding with high-vis jackets there.
They started running,
Yes.
and then they just sat in the road. It was like, I don't know whether they knew that there was sort of a police presence around, but I just thought it was hilarious. But yeah, they're in some major routes, and like we were saying about the ambulances, like it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they have currently an injunction granted to the National Highways against them, which prohibited demonstrators causing damage to the surface and apparatus around the M25. They can't paint it, damage it by fire, fix any item, and if they break the injunction, they'll be in contempt of court, so they could risk a prison sentence of up to 2 years or an unlimited fine. But obviously, this hasn't stopped them. They don't really care, because before even blocking a road, that was already a criminal offence. So they're really just laying on it's almost like increasing the penalty of murder to the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in this case, it's not the death penalty, even though I'm sure some commuters might want to see that. I wouldn't support that, obviously, but some commuters do feel heavily, strongly about that.
It actually only began, the protests, very recently. It was actually the 13th of September. It's still going on. I mean, we'll talk about it sort of more in our current affairs section.
Yes.
Obviously,
well, 72% of people opposed this pressure group. I think that's quite common, quite interesting to see across pressure groups who will analyse. There was big opposition to Insulate Britain, a lot of opposition towards it.
Yeah, another sort of eco sort of pressure group. Your good friends, Archie, at Extinction Rebellion.
I hope that was a joke, Oliver.
Anyway,
they're wonderful, wonderful people, obviously, yes.
They sort of similar idea that they're pressing for, but and they've done a similar thing, and they had a massive boat but they've gone more into the centre of London.
It was less disruptive, I think, to many people's lives. And they're a non-violent civil disobedience group, which wants to compel government action towards the climate emergency, biodiversity loss, and social and ecological collapse.
Yeah. But
so
they put a massive boat, didn't they? Right, sort of, was it near Westminster or something? I think it was quite a while that I've seen other actions that they've taken by jumping on top of the trains on.
Well, they have more. Interesting, they have a lot more support than Insulate Britain. They have about 54% opposed them, but 36 strongly supported them, and somewhat supported them. And that's coming from YouGov. They did sit on the train.
And a plane as well. I remember seeing it on Sky News.
The plane makes more sense than the train, but the train is a mode of eco-friendly transport, so it didn't really make sense at all to me. Why they'd think, let's block the way where commuters are getting to work because they don't want to drive, they're taking a train. It's almost, that was very nonsensical. Very nonsensical there.
Yeah, so yet again, another sort of recently founded group as well, October 2018. So since then, they've done a lot of sort of pressuring, haven't they?
Everyone knows their name, I think.
Yeah,
it's safe to say.
Definitely. So they're sort of two sort of groups, sort of going for
the environment
side. Yeah. But we've also, we've just sort of looked at them being sort of not in the massive favour of most people. Do you support any of their actions, Archie?
Well, I think the overarching aims of wanting some action is good. I don't support the action that they want. They're pushing for more socialist Green New Deal, as pops up in the Labour Party conference by the person in dungarees addressing everyone as my comrades. We need a socialist Green New Deal. I don't necessarily support that style of action. I can sympathise with the overall aims of wanting some action on climate change. The way they go about it, Extinction and Rebellion, I'd favour over Insulate Britain, but still both of them I'm not in full support of. Again, Extinction and Rebellion, we didn't mention the vandalism part of it.
Yes.
They do. Although, yes, they do spray paint fossil fuel companies, they do cause a lot of havoc everywhere, and a big clean-up from it is arguably also environmentally damaging. So that's, again, not so keeping within the style of protest.
Another iconic thing that you might remember, listeners, I don't usually often say that, or watches via Manx
Listeners,
Radio.
we're a podcast, Oliver. We're a podcast.
I know, but some people do watch over Manx Radio Vision.
And those people move on to our podcast platforms, please. They don't have to watch our horrible body language and faces. Obviously.
Indeed. Anyway, do you remember? Have you seen that video of them running across the mall in London? And blocking Boris Johnson
that
on
was
his way.
funny.
I think he was on his way to Buckingham Palace.
Oh no, way back from Buckingham Palace, and then the police then jumped out and then pushed them away. It was quite entertaining.
So most people will definitely recognise them. So are we going to move on to another of our UK pressure groups or international pressure groups?
Yeah, absolutely, feel free.
So another one that we've sort of recently sorry, can't get my words straight there. Recently seen appear over the past few years is the Black Lives Matter group, and they were founded sort of was it they've actually been around a lot longer than I thought. I thought it was only very recently, but
recently they rose to provenance.
Yes. 2013 is actually when they started, and it's a social movement protesting against incidents of police brutality and all racially motivated violence against black people. But particularly in the last year have we seen them profile really been boosted since sort of June last year. Obviously, we had a protest over here on the island, and that was, I appear, quite successful. They had a lot of people. It was just as the island was coming out of lockdown. It's probably one of the biggest gatherings on the island post lockdown. So I think it was really successful. They had quite a few sort of speakers afterwards as well. I've watched quite a few videos of that. It was really interesting, speaking about their experiences on the island, and from that, we've seen a lot more appear on Isle of Man social media.
Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting that you mention Black Lives Matter and you give their Wikipedia definition there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
But
that was the closest thing I could see.
But interestingly, that may be their overarching thing, but I'd say it goes a lot deeper than what the public actually realise. It goes a lot deeper than kind of. It's different to the matter of the slogan, basically. So if you even look at their Black Lives Matter founders, they're almost, it's not like, yes, it's just a social movement purely focusing on making racial equality. The Black Lives Matter founders quite proudly state, we are trained Marxists. Mm-hmm. Their goals overall are to build, they aren't just to make the American dream a reality for all, if you take it's where it started in America, but it's actually transform America completely in that regard. So they said, let me find it. It was kind of, they wanted to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for each other. They call for the progressive restructuring of tax codes, sustainable redistribution of wealth. This is a partner organisation which is basically the same as them, which also says the retroactive decriminalisation, immediate release and record expungement of all drug-related offences. They want to end the war on drugs basically. But even if you go on that level there, all the drug-related offences, that could mean you're committing mass drug smuggling. It's criminal activity. It isn't necessarily just the possession of it. Even if we then go into, I can talk all day on Black Lives Matter. Basically, they have a very radical Marxist agenda, mm-hmm. which would kind of supplant the basic building block of society, which is family, and the state, and destroy even the economic system that even has lifted many millions of black mm-hmm. people out of poverty. It's not a kind of blueprint for equality, almost, I'd say. So again, they changed their mission statements differently depending on the time, but there are many. What their original statements are, they basically wanted to create a socialist economy, and that's going far away from the single mission statement, which originally people would sympathise with, mm-hmm. But they don't realise that the actual organisation itself is heading in a different way, and it's a lot deeper than what's recognised.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've seen it in the Black Lives Matter movement in sporting events as well. So, for example, in the Premier League, taking the knee has been used a lot more. well, no, it's been sort of implemented since last year, but obviously it was the Tokyo Olympics this year, and the IOC, which organises the games, initially banned competitors from taking the knee, as it says in Rule 50 of the Olympic Charter, forbids any demonstration or political, religious or racial propaganda. But then it decided to lift that ban and allow the participants, the athletes, to express their views. So it's interesting to see how it sort of influences, political movements and pressure groups move into sporting events and things that people that are not politically sort of interested in, that it moves on to them. Obviously, we've seen Marcus Rashford with free school meals. See, that's got a lot more people of my age who wouldn't really be interested in sort of what was going on with the free school meals, but someone that they know and sort of follow and support online, a well-known football player, from his experiences, he was quite driven by what was going on there. So it's interesting to see how it sort of affects people as well.
I don't agree with making sport political. It should be something that is apolitical almost, because that way it survives even through when politics changes. It's not something, even if you look at the kind of in regimes where sport is always kind of this outside of that. It's kind of something separate, and that's quite special about sports. It brings us together in ways where it doesn't matter what politics you support, kind of what views you hold. You can celebrate sport.
That's the thing on the pitch, isn't it? Everyone is equal.
Wrong.
And that sort of sense. So we've discussed a bit there about Black Lives Matter. Is there anything further you want to add on that, or would you like to move on to sort of looking at a different pressure group? Or
I just don't personally think I can't support the organisation that's Black Lives Matter, for example. It's a lot deeper than what you'd think on the name of Black Lives Matter. There's a lot more, especially if you look at the founders, for example. They were saying, it's interesting the hypocrisy of some of them. They're saying we should boycott buying in white neighbourhoods, and then they bought a £13 million mansion or something in a heavily predominantly white neighbourhood. That sort of behaviour again doesn't really get any merits from me, I'd say. But yeah, moving on, we look at some IOM pressuring. So one I'm part of, which is the Isle of Man Student Climate Network, Oliver. So let's let Oliver explain that one.
So when did you set that up, Archie? Was it 20?
You should have done your research here, Oliver. Yeah. Come on. Disappointing here. We're gonna have to dock your pay again every week. Every week you're getting a pay cut. Austerity measures need to be brought in place as well. So this is only an excuse. Yes. It says 2019 March.
2019 March, and it was similar to the UK one. Did you sort of follow in from that?
It's not similar necessarily, because our aims which we provide are slightly different, and unlike the UK group, which I'm sure we'll go into after, we're a non-partisan organisation, so we didn't really hold any political affiliation, which meant it was very open, and we were able to express ideas, unlike in the UK, where we had the UK Student Climate Network, which is very, very anti-conservative, anti-anything with capitalism. They were anti any expression of a view which was different to theirs. I think I expressed a view that not all police are bad necessarily, and I got absolutely it was ridiculous the comments I got through from that, or even the fact that capitalism isn't necessarily bad. Or there's another one which was related to, well, if you're looking at us, we might reach overpopulation. Overpopulation isn't good, and then apparently it's fascist to think that overpopulation is good. Or even looking at eco-fascism, which again I do not agree with, and I was saying the fascism part of it is utterly ridiculous. That I can never agree with. But if you look, it's interesting. I mean, just said it's interesting to see the idea of putting the environment first, because that's ultimately what they wanted to do. They wanted to put the environment first, and I was pointing out that part of it, and I then got called a fascist, which was ridiculous because I'm totally for freedom. I like freedom of speech, freedom of expression. All of that is essential, but I apparently saying that what exploring the idea of putting the environment first and saying it's fascinating. I think that's something which is quite interesting. That apparently makes you fascist. So again, the Isle of Man Student Climate Network was different to that, so we're quite separate.
So since 2019, you've had several protests outside the Isle of Man's legislative buildings, and you've been sort of speaking to the media outside there and sort of lobbying politicians.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. And obviously your aim has been to lower the date in which carbon neutrality
is met. So we wanted to look at 2030. It's turning into like my interview yesterday. I had 2 interviews, one with Jeff Mongoose and one with, again, Max Radio. So we set it up kind of to push originally for 2035 carbon neutrality. And then we moved into looking at maybe getting more education in the education system because we were lacking any sort of form of political education. I'm sure as you went through school, when did you learn about climate change and how much did you learn?
That is the answer, basically.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, exactly. The bare basics you touch on is there's something called the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases cause a greenhouse effect which heats up the Earth's atmosphere and causes a bit of warming. That was it. That's
in biology,
exactly,
isn't it? Yeah.
There's no explanation of here's what we've contributed.
There may have been a little bit in geography.
But that's optional.
Yeah,
it's optional. It's not mandatory at all to learn about it. And we found that utterly ridiculous. So that's why, again, we were pressuring on that side of things. And obviously, yes, lobbying government through media and protesting.
And those protests have been completely peaceful, although there was sort of a bit of a problem, was there, with the education department over here sort of allowing... Were they open for letting students go to these protests?
No, they were not. And as I've stated before, and I hope it does get published. The school leadership were very all the schools, like every single school on the island. They were all very anti. I got called into my head's office and got told how dangerous Douglas was in the daytime and how a fight could break out and how dangerous it could be in the centre of the financial district and legislative district of Douglas, where we are a very, very low crime rate island. And I got told how dangerous it was and how silly and idiotic we were for going out to protest and how it could be so dangerous and we could be put at risk. And they were really just concerned about our health and safety. It was utterly ridiculous.
I mean, you do stand on a fairly busy road, but you stand with your backs not even against, you're not sort of like you're leaning in the road or you're wandering in the road.
It's hardly a dangerous road.
Yeah.
The drivers aren't going, even in Insulate Britain when they sit off the roads, aren't run over Oliver. So I really doubt we were at much risk there.
I mean, he does have he does have to safeguard students, especially since it's during the day, so he has to care in some sort of
but Oliver's trying to scaremonger students out of going to Douglas in the middle of the day for a protest against the environment, and they're saying they'll catch up on lessons. That really isn't something. It's not even something in their control. It's not like it's in school activity. It's really outside a safeguarding issue, outside any form of care, of duty, of responsibility.
So are you free to go now, or is it sort of a case of you need to sign a form or it's going to get marked down as absence?
They relaxed the rules after seeing we were successful.
Oh.
It was very ironic.
Yeah.
Once they see successful, they're like, oh yeah, we want the school's name there. Yeah. It's really odd how the system of anything works. They're trying to jump on the bandwagon.
Anyway, So, have you got any others coming up soon?
No.
Just for any listeners.
Yes,
yeah.
No. We may in the future, but we're not yet sure.
Yeah.
But moving on to another Isle of Man kind of centric pressure group with IOM Elm Trees. What was Isle of Man Elm Trees that campaign for?
Well, I do believe it was sort of set up by the deputy leader of the Isle of Man Green Party, Lamara Crane. I think she put a Facebook group out regarding what was going on with the elm trees, which it was very odd how it all came about. I remember seeing this in the newspaper over here. Which, not many people my age read the newspaper, but I like to read the newspaper over here because it's interesting. Anywho.
It's very, very good. I like the newspaper, especially the Financial Times.
Yes.
I'm very odd in that
But we're
regard.
talking about either the Manx Independent, the Courier, or the Examiner here. Anyway, there was a picture of Graham Cregeen, I think now you say the former Department of Home Affairs
Oliver,
Minister.
he who cannot be mentioned.
The former Department of Health. Department of Health. Department of
Home Affairs.
Home Affairs. Sorry. And it was about how the displayment of planning applications were being displayed. Anyway, basically, it got through the planning committee. The commissioners didn't basically raise anything, and before it was too late, everyone was like, "Oh my God, these trees are going to get knocked down." These trees were on a main road in a elm tree arc, as they call it. It was apparently one of the.
There weren't even many trees, and to be fair, they were going to replant about 10 times the amount of trees
Yeah.
anyway.
Anyway, it was
Yeah.
on a road of loads of other trees, and it was on a main road, and it was going to be because someone wanted to build a new entrance to their farmhouse.
It basically was. It wasn't a safe entrance first,
yeah.
so they wanted to expand.
Yeah,
the
they wanted to
entrance.
open it up wider, and there's going to be a few trees come down. Anyway, it was public outrage on
It's ridiculous.
all the Isle of Man's
Ridiculous.
social media platforms, and they got a petition which got, bearing in mind it probably wasn't mostly Isle of Man residents. It was about 40,000 people.
It was really ridiculous.
Yeah,
yes.
it was quite mind-boggling at the time. Anyway, me and Archie drove through there one day, and yeah,
We saw the amount of trees, and we thought it's not even that significant.
yeah. I mean,
it was really confusing. I understand if they were cutting down all of them. Yes, outrage. I'd be
So,
outraged.
a lot of people
yeah.
since then have said there's been fall-throughs with the Isle of Man's, way things go through planning, and how sort of people it got sort of
So get your planning in
put
soon,
off.
guys, before it all changes.
yeah. So yeah.
And then
do
you won't
that.
be able to do anything without the support of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and it took quite a few days before anything was going to happen. It was people saying, yes, apparently they're going to be going down with chainsaws on Wednesday morning. we better all go there and tie ourselves to the trees, and and it took a while. And they said, oh yes, well the minister's going to speak with the owners, and and then it took a few days, and then it finally didn't happen. They came to an agreement that it wouldn't happen. I don't know what
Yes.
the alternative is for.
Well,
I
would
think they found a
yeah.
new entrance. I think that's what it was.
So
Yeah.
it's because they got like threats or something.
Yeah, no, serious. Yeah.
But anyway, so do we think overall that that pressure groups have much impact, or if they're useful? And what do we think about pressure groups, even the ones which are emerging at the moment, Oliver?
I think they're really good. I think it's
Insulate Britain's good, says Oliver.
Well, no,
Wait,
no.
let me finish. That'll be the Daily Mail's headline tomorrow.
I
Or the
think-
Sun, either one.
Okay, let me rephrase that.
Clickbait headlines.
I think some pressure groups are effective and can sort of change policy, but not all, especially when you're causing such danger. Sorry, Isle of Man Student Climate Network, but Insulate Britain in particular, it's quite.
Falls under where Oliver says some are good. Yes.
Anywho.
Yeah, I think I can sympathise there. Some are good, and it all obviously depends on the processes in which they
Yes,
follow.
I mean, and it's also when it affects people, it sort of makes them turn to anger. When it directly affects them. I mean, like Insulate Britain, but then it's sort of, is it getting the awareness that it needs? Are politicians aware of what's going on? I suppose that's why on the Isle of Man, it's usually outside the legislative buildings.
Indeed, yes.
Or at the place of where something's occurring. So we've had them outside, for example, Manx Gas, their actual headquarters there, just down the road. And yeah, but you don't see... Oh, there's actually one the other day.
What's that?
For the gambling.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
there was outside the
and
Villa
that was
Marina.
because people don't believe
Yeah.
in gambling. So that is the latest sort of pressure.
I think they were gambling on the opportunity to actually make a difference there. It
Yeah.
was a gamble to whether that pressure group would actually work. Couldn't resist the pun.
So on the Isle of Man, most of them... Oh, we had the Peel Bay as well.
Yes.
So we have them quite frequently on the Isle of Man.
The impact is unknown, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. This week we had the election of our Isle of Man's chief minister.
Indeed.
So, first of all, what did our poll say? Who they thought or who they prefer to get in?
Well, unfortunately, I can't get the access to
give me half a minute. Speak on for a minute,
Okay,
Oliver. Let me
Archie can quickly go into Instagram when it's not down. But yeah, I conducted a little poll on the other night. I just thought, I'll quickly nip on our social media platform and have a quick look. So I put the profile of each candidate's manifesto, and it had their sort of phrase that they were using for how the island was going to go. So, and then I said, there's going to be a vote tomorrow on the MHKs. The public doesn't actually decide, but your MHKs do. So, who do you think?
We got 63 said Dr. Alex Hamilton, and 37 said Alfred Cannon.
Now, you could see that in the way that most younger people are of the liberal ideology and
It's a
sort
shame,
of view.
isn't it?
No, I wouldn't wouldn't disagree with you. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't disagree with me
I
there.
would.
I'm
Sorry, I would.
glad there.
I'm
glad
falling
there.
off on my words. This is awful. I would disagree with you there, Archie. Not all of obviously Alex Allison's views, but sort of most of what he was saying I thought was good. But I thought a lot of what Alf was saying was really good. So personally, who would I have voted for? Probably Alf. Well, I declared that last week, didn't I, really?
Yes, you did.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm not surprised that most people went for Alex, because most of our followings are of people that are, this is a politics podcast for the youth, run by the youth, so I can see why that sort of fold, but...
Well, it was, again, Alf was elected, and we'll be digging into that in our current affairs.
Indeed.
Bits and bobs. So, yes, we move on to our... Won't let me play it. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, we move on to our Isle of Man current affairs. There are calls for an inquiry into the island's COVID-19 response, and there's been recommendations from the pack for this to go before Tynwald. The Isle of Man's Chief Minister has said he'll be shaping his new cabinet in the coming days, and that the Council of Ministers must share the same common goal. A secondary school teacher on the island has challenged government's views on the COVID-19 mitigation strategy, and has said that enhanced ventilation is just windows open. That's it for the Isle of Man's current affairs.
And that's current affairs forever and all. It's it for Isle of Man current affairs. We're being absorbed into United Kingdom tomorrow, commencing at midnight. So I was just reading off your last statement there. I thought what are we going to do? Never mind, Oliver. The joke fell flat. But yes, calls for an inquiry into government's COVID response. Do you think that we should have an inquiry, Oliver?
Well, obviously it's going to cost money, isn't it?
Sorry, guys. Government must shut down. It's going to cost money to do anything in government. Sorry, guys. Oliver says you can't be doing any of that.
Well, obviously, I'm pretty sure it was I was reading an article and they wanted a judge from across to do the review.
Oh, that'd be ridiculous.
Yes, so it's going to cost a lot more. They could just do an independent review.
I'll do it for free.
Yeah, there you go.
There you are. There's your offer. Job offer here.
I think I think most individuals can recognise, unless you really don't want to go into where you've gone wrong. Most individuals can recognise where the government's gone wrong over the past.
I don't think there's a need to inquire.
No, I believe that there is, but
Because what's done's done, really.
Yeah.
There's not much we've already learnt our lessons, and we have generally had a good strategy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, unlike the UK, we've been quite well off from COVID. So I wouldn't say that it's a giant public disaster that needs an inquiry.
And I think we can, we sort of know the mistakes that have happened.
Well, the island's new chief minister has said he's gonna be shaping his new cabinet.
Over the next coming days.
Obviously, we can't predict in the cabinet because it could go anywhere, really.
So, for the first time, it was just the House of Keys voting, and it was 14 for Cannon.
I think it used to be originally the House of Keys anyway.
Yeah.
But they moved to
so it's 14 Cannon, 8 Allinson, which then makes 22. So 2 people didn't vote for them at all.
John Wannenberg and Chris Thomas.
Yes.
And then in the second vote, I forgot how many...
confirmatory vote, it was 21 for, and 3 against.
Yes.
And that was John Wannenberg, Sarah Maltby, and
Joni Farragher.
Which I didn't
understand, because the whole point of a confirmatory
it wasn't a party decision either.
That's what they say.
It was an individual decision.
That's what they say. That's what they say. But I'm pretty sure
it was because most of their
think the same.
constituents. Most of their constituents were.
But it's ridiculous, because the whole point of a confirmatory vote is to say we accept you as chief minister. You've already done the preference, and it's not showing that you then don't support your preference. You didn't hold strong to your views.
Mm-hmm.
You do the preference, and you say, well, yep, that's fine. Okay, I'll accept him. I'll accept the result. That's really what the vote is.
So,
it just doesn't make sense.
We know that probably the four people that voted against him will basically, obviously there was others that voted Allinson, but who knows, must share the common goal. No, sorry, what am I on about?
I don't know what you're going about here. Share the common goal? What's this?
Most people, most people that want to be in Council of Ministers must share the same goal.
Collective responsibility.
So, yeah. I mean, he said he wants to drop collective responsibility in his manifesto. But I mean, he doesn't want someone in there that's not going to be wanting to work with him. Anyway, a secondary school teacher has challenged the government's mitigation strategy. In schools, I mean, we both know what it's like in schools. It's, there is
ridiculous. It's quite funny. All the schools in Ireland, they
have got
decide.
cases.
Yeah, they've all got cases. And they decide our ventilation strategy to stop COVID is making everyone freeze.
Well, I don't know that all schools have got cases, but I know in my school...
they all have cases, trust me. But they will have cases. But their methods are, let's open a window.
I've not seen a teacher go, right, or I've not seen anyone go, right, this just opening the window here,
They're already open.
They're not.
At my school, they're already open. It's freezing all day. Because
it is.
Yeah.
They
leave the radiators on full and open the windows, which is ridiculous environmentally. It's ridiculous, and it doesn't actually do much. So that is their COVID mitigation strategy. Leave the windows open.
Yeah. There's a few people wearing masks,
but not many, so it doesn't really have any impact as such.
Yeah. Basically, I see it as if everyone wears a mask, then it's going to be effective. Not 100% effective, but it's going to be more effective than not wearing them. So that is sort of Isle of Man news. So it's COVID, or Chief Minister. I did say to Archie before, when are we going to not have a PolitiBabble podcast without mentioning COVID?
I think it's never is the answer. I'll make sure to make our final episode. It is my last episode. I'll make sure there's no mention of COVID. That'll be cut out of it. I'll be fed up by then. But anyway, so our UK and international news, I've only got 2 bits. Obviously, we've got Insulate Britain. They've now decided they're going on pause for 11 days.
Yeah. So it'll be October the 25th.
Yes.
So there we go. We were talking about them earlier, and now they've just stopped.
Oh, stopped for 11 days.
Yeah.
I don't know why it stopped necessarily. They just decided... I think they probably don't have enough people now. They've all been arrested. They've exhausted the supply. They said it's being suspended ahead of the COP26 conference. That's the only reason.
Are they all going to be up there, is it?
Maybe that's why. Blockading Boris Johnson's hotel.
Up in Scotland,
yeah.
That'll be why.
But anyway, so we also saw North Korea's soldiers. They had a big display the other day, and they were smashing concrete blocks onto the soldiers when they're lying on broken glass. I think it has been slightly debunked by a magician as not actually being real, but more of an illusion to show strength, which makes sense, because I was thinking, how on earth can you... Already breaking a concrete block with a sledgehammer on a solid surface leads damage. How can you do that on someone's chest and not break their chest? Or how can you smash over someone's arm into a concrete block and they don't feel any pain, it's not broken? It's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's generally our international news. Not much this week. I've not collated it. So, Oliver this week is going to speak to us about a topic for 1 minute exactly, without hesitation, deviation, or repetition. So, Oliver, what's your topic? And let's get started.
Well, I currently don't have a topic, but I'll just pick one straight off the bat. I was talking to my friend the other day, and we are fascinated by the area of Fleshwick. We go running there quite a lot, and it's sort of a very unpopulated area. It might have been previously. Anyway, it's a lovely landscape in the Isle of Man. Would you agree with me there? Oh, yeah, he can nod his head. He's not going to interrupt me. It's got a great little beach. Anyway, you're saying to me, you should sort of make a little documentary all about what's gone on there. And previously they had a big fire up in about sort of 15 years ago. And there's been all sorts of renovations there recently as well. And he said previously there was sort of tea rooms there and tennis courts. So I think it'd be a really interesting place to look into. The landscape of it is just amazing, and a few of my friends go mountain biking in the plantation now. I've been there a couple of times, but a very steep plantation. And it also going sort of into Fleshwick is the Isle of Man's Radnafollion, which is Way of the Gull, which is about 100-mile path all the way around the island. Anyway, I'm very interested in sort of Fleshwick. I'm going to try and research it a bit more, but I just thought, if you didn't know much about Fleshwick, which my friend sort of always says people pronounce it wrong, but yeah. Fleshwick, there you go. Just talk a bit about Fleshwick and it's what's about. I just thought
not exactly politics, but it does. It's fascinating. I must say, it is some beautiful landscape there.
yeah.
It's an island. It's not an island. It's a part of our wonderful southern coast of the island.
I really couldn't think much to talk about any. That's just what came to my mind.
Wait, the tea rooms, is that the chasms?
There was tea rooms up at the chasms, but
Was there in
apparently there was a
Crikey,
yeah
where?
yeah. No, I was looking at photos back of Fleshwick.
Crikey,
and
that's very cool.
I've got I think there's a page or something I've seen of photos of Fleshwick, and it had tennis courts, and it was amazing.
You have to send this on.
Yeah,
that is quite something.
Yeah. It's completely changed over the past few years, and I think they've had. I could be wrong whether they had filming or something down there. I'm sure there has been filming down there because it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's just quite wonderful.
So yeah, all about Fleshwick. It's great. I love going running there.
Well, no time to lose. It's on to our recommendations of the week. So, Oliver, what are your recommendations for reading, listening, and watching?
Well, I've just started my EPQ, which is an extended project qualification. So it's a research sort of qualification. Anyway, I've just going into Manx politics. What a surprise! Anyway,
what's your title? Have you come up with
I haven't got a
title
title at the moment. I'm just researching a lot of stuff and going into. It might be on the political system. It may be on potentially. Do civil servants on the Isle of Man have more power than the politicians? There's a few routes that I'm going to be going down. Anyway, first of all, I picked up one book which is all about the Isle of Man's lieutenant governors over the past few years and their sort of story. I don't know whether I'm going to actually take much from it, but I'm going to try and read a little bit and see how what their views are or what they're talking about in there. Anyway, so I've just picked that book up and we'll start reading it. Anyway, for watching, I don't think I've actually for listening, I don't think I've actually watched anything this week. I can't remember. It's not very good of me. Anyway, listening. Agenda. I've been listening to Manx Radio's Agenda, which is a programme which is broadcast on a Monday at 5:30, I think.
Where's the broadcast on, Oliver?
Manx Radio.
Suck up here to Manx Radio. Oh dear.
Anyway, I think it's great. It's a political programme produced and narrated by Phil Gorn, and he's recently just had a few of the newly elected MHKs on, so it's been really interesting to listen to, and some of them new, and his son Ewan, who has worked at Manx Radio, and he did the programme for a little while, but now Phil's sort of taken on the reins. It's really interesting. Hopefully I'll keep listening to it. It's usually sort of I thought there was something falling down there, so Agenda's what I've been listening to. It's great.
Very nice. Well, I've been reading currently. I'm doing some work for my history coursework, so again it's related to that, but I'm fascinating anyway. It's a 1668 book from 1668, called The World's Mistake in Oliver Cromwell, a short political discourse showing that Cromwell's maladministration during his 4 years and 9 months pretended protectorship laid the foundations of our present condition in the decay of trade, by Slingsby Bethel. Fascinating book, I must say. It's written in Old English to some degree. Right. So all the S's look like F's. It's a pain. I'm transcribing it because I want to. Then it's much easier to read. Yes, that's my reading for the week. Listening wise, there's a brilliant tune called it's by Hummel, called Introduction, Theme and Variations, Opus 102. As you're here now, I need to wait for them to actually. Yes, it's a wonderful piece of classical music. I came across it when looking for some comparisons for my music A level and just some wider listening. But yeah, I do recommend it. It's Johann Nemox Hummel. Is his Introduction, Theme and Variations, Opus number 103. It's quite a lovely piece. With a lovely oboe playing for a difference, considering the oboe is. I should host a classical music program, really.
You should.
But yes, considering the oboe is generally quite shriekest and quite
Yeah.
cutting through.
I know one of my friends plays
yeah,
the oboe.
I think I know them.
Yeah.
But there's a lovely.
I don't know many
rich
oboe players,
Yeah.
and he's one of them.
Yes, there's a lovely rich sound with tasteful vibrato there. And watching wise this week, I've not yet watched it, but it's on my list to watch after I've finished my admissions tests and an A-level exam. It is Blair and Brown, the new BBC documentary on them. It's fascinating. They've interviews with both Blair and Brown and members of their administration.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
just been
Just been released
yeah
on the 8th of October. Yeah,
I had in my head then when you said Blair, I somehow got the Beatles thing that they're
No, not
releasing in.
no.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
must
yeah.
watch that. I also want to watch the new Bond film.
Oh, yeah, I've not watched. But again, I'm not a fan of the cinema, so
Yeah.
I'll probably wait till it comes
Yeah,
out.
that's probably me as well.
I'll wait till it comes out on streaming and then I'll
Yeah.
watch it. Even if you have to pay it, I'll buy
Yeah.
it on streaming. Much better.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, I'll finish off with
Yeah.
Hummel's Introduction Theme and Variations 102. It's a lovely piece. I do recommend. Yes, it's great being able to play my music examples on here. I should do a classical music podcast to be rather good. I say
You
rather
should.
good. Yes. So that does actually conclude our PolitiBabble for this week. What's happening next week, Oliver?
Well, we've hopefully got a guest on. So
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
We'll do some.
That'll keep you looped in.
Yeah, we'll do some from the desks of our listeners, hopefully, by next week. Once we've got a topic sorted, we'll let you know and let us know your views. I was going to come up with a catchy pun there, but then couldn't quite manage it. So yes, that is, you can join us again next week for episode 2 of season 5 of PolitiBabble. You can listen to all our past episodes, including the Manx mini-series on manxradio.com/podcast/PolitiBabble. That's manxradio.com/podcast/PolitiBabble. So if you do want to have a political debate or come on and talk to us, do let us know and we'll try to accommodate you depending on the topic and, you know, what we're feeling like, really. Yes, it is a dictatorship here. Yes, well, a dual dictatorship in ways Oliver would like to imagine. But yes.
You've been PolitiBabbles.